I discovered my entire family was in witness protection and our whole life was fabricated, so I Googled our real names and found out why. I was 19 when I found the documents that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. It started innocently enough. I was home from college helping Dad clean out the garage when a box fell from the top shelf. Papers scattered everywhere. Birth certificates, social security cards, driver's licenses. But these weren't ours. The names were wrong. Everything was wrong. Instead of the Thompson family from Portland, Oregon, these documents belonged to the Kowalski family from Detroit, Michigan. But the photos were unmistakably us. Mom, Dad, my younger sister, and me, just with completely different names. "Dad!" I called out, holding up his fake driver's license. "What is this?" The color drained from his face. He snatched the document from my hands, scanning the garage frantically to see what else had spilled out. "Where did you get this?" His voice was shaking. "It fell from your box. Dad, why do you have fake IDs?" He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the license in his hands. When he finally looked up, his eyes were filled with something I'd never seen before. Pure terror. "Go get your mother and sister. Bring them to the living room. Don't say anything to them yet." 20 minutes later, we were all sitting on the couch in complete silence. Dad paced back and forth in front of us, running his hands through his hair. Mom kept wringing her hands, refusing to make eye contact with any of us. "There's something we need to tell you," Dad finally said. "Something we should have told you years ago." My sister grabbed my arm. She was only 16, still in high school. This was going to destroy her world, just like it was destroying mine. "Our real name isn't Thompson," Dad continued. "It's Kowalski. We've been living under assumed identities for the past 15 years. The room started spinning. Nothing made sense. "What do you mean assumed identities?" I managed to ask. Mom finally spoke up, her voice barely a whisper. "We're in witness protection." The words hit me like a physical blow. Witness protection. That meant someone wanted us dead. Had wanted us dead for 15 years. Witness protection from what? My sister asked, her voice cracking. Dad sat down heavily in his chair. "From the people I used to work for. Before you were born, before any of this, I was involved with some very dangerous people. When I decided to testify against them, the government had to hide us." "What kind of dangerous people?" I pressed. "The kind that don't forgive," Mom said quietly. "The kind that don't forget." My mind raced. Every birthday party, every school play, every family vacation, all of it had been a lie. Our friends, our neighbors, our entire community thought we were someone else entirely. "How dangerous?" I asked. Dad and Mom exchanged a look that chilled me to the bone. That night, after my sister had cried herself to sleep and my parents had gone to bed, I snuck into Dad's office and found our real names written on one of the documents: Vincent Kowalski, Patricia Kowalski, Daniel Kowalski, and Rebecca Kowalski. I opened my laptop and typed Vincent Kowalski Detroit into Google. The first result made my blood run cold. "Witness in major organized crime trial found dead." The article was dated just 3 months ago. There was a photo, a man who looked exactly like my father, just older and with gray hair. The caption read, "Vincent Kowalski, 52, key witness in the Torino crime family trial, was found shot execution style in his apartment in Detroit. Police suspect retaliation for his cooperation with federal authorities." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely scroll. If Dad was dead, then who was the man sleeping upstairs? Who had raised me for the past 19 years? I kept reading, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. The article mentioned that Kowalski had been in witness protection since 2008, but had recently requested to return to Detroit to care for his dying mother. The U.S. Marshals had advised against it, but he'd insisted. 3 days after arriving in Detroit, he was dead. I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was reading. The man in the photo looked like my father, but the timeline didn't make sense. We'd been in Portland this whole time. Dad worked at the insurance company. He coached my little league team. He helped me with homework. Unless, I searched for more recent articles and found them. Dozens of them. Torino crime family trial ends in mistrial. Key witness death derails federal prosecution. Alleged crime boss walks free after witness murdered. The most recent article, published just last week, contained a quote that made my stomach drop. "With the death of our primary witness, Vincent Kowalski, we no longer have sufficient evidence to proceed with prosecution," said federal prosecutor Amanda Cruz. "However, we believe the Torino family is actively hunting for Kowalski's family members, including his wife Patricia and 2 children, Daniel and Rebecca. We urge anyone with information about their whereabouts to contact federal authorities immediately." I slammed the laptop shut and ran upstairs, taking the steps 3 at a time. I burst into my parents' bedroom without knocking. "Dad!" I shouted. "Wake up!" Both my parents shot up in bed, instantly alert in a way that seemed trained, practiced. "What's wrong?" Dad asked, already reaching for something under his pillow. "You're supposed to be dead," I said, my voice shaking. "Vincent Kowalski is dead. It's all over the news." The silence that followed was deafening. My parents stared at each other, having an entire conversation with just their eyes. Finally, Mom spoke. "How much did you read?" "Everything. The trial, the crime family, the fact that you're all being hunted." I was crying now, the reality of our situation hitting me all at once. "Are we safe? Are they looking for us?" Dad got out of bed and started pacing. "This changes everything. If they found Vincent in Detroit, they know the protection program was compromised." "Wait," I said. "If Vincent Kowalski is dead, then who are you?" Dad stopped pacing and looked at me with sad eyes. Vincent Kowalski was my brother. The room spun again. Nothing was making sense. "He took my place," Dad continued. "When the marshals offered us protection, Vincent volunteered to stay behind and pretend to be me. He thought he could handle it. Thought he was being clever by hiding in plain sight. Your brother died for us? I whispered. Vincent was always the brave one, Mom said quietly. He insisted that our family, you kids especially, deserved a chance at a normal life. I sank onto their bed, overwhelmed. So what's your real name? Anthony Kowalski. Vincent was my twin brother. Twin brother. That explained why the photos looked so much like Dad. And now they know Vincent is dead, which means they know we're still out there somewhere, I said. Dad nodded grimly, which means we need to disappear again. What about my sister? She's supposed to graduate in 2 months. I'm supposed to finish college. None of that matters if we're dead, Mom said bluntly. How did this all start? I asked. What did you do that was so bad they've been hunting us for 15 years? Dad sat down on the bed next to me. I worked for Dominic Torino. Started when I was just 18. Stupid kid from the neighborhood who thought the money and respect was worth it. I did collections, ran numbers, eventually graduated to more serious work. He paused, and I could see him deciding how much to tell me. The FBI flipped me after they caught me during a wiretap operation. They had enough evidence to put me away for 20 years, but they offered me a deal. Testify against Dominic and walk away clean. And you took it. I had a family to think about. You were 4, your sister was just a baby. I couldn't go to prison and leave your mother to raise you alone, but you knew it would put us in danger. I thought the government could protect us. They promised us new identities, a fresh start. They said Dominic would be locked away for life, but something went wrong. Dad nodded. The trial was delayed for years. Appeals, motions, legal technicalities. Dominic spent most of that time on bail, running his operation and planning his revenge. I thought about all those times Dad had insisted we couldn't have social media accounts, how he'd driven 40 minutes out of the way to avoid certain areas of the city, how he'd always parked facing the exit wherever we went. You've been watching for them this whole time. Every single day for 15 years. And now they've found Vincent, which means they're getting close. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our situation settling over us. There's something else, Mom said quietly. Something we haven't told you. I looked at her, not sure I could handle any more revelations. Vincent didn't just volunteer to take your father's place out of the goodness of his heart. He owed us. What do you mean? Dad took over. Vincent was the one who got me involved with Dominic in the first place. He was already working for the family when he recruited me. But when things got dangerous, when the FBI started closing in, Vincent disappeared, left me holding the bag. He abandoned you? For years, yes. But when the marshals approached us about witness protection, I reached out to him, told him this was his chance to make things right. So he agreed to switch places with you. It was supposed to be temporary, Mom said, just until the trial was over and Dominic was locked away. Then we could all resume our real lives. But the trial kept getting delayed. And Vincent got comfortable playing the role of loving family man in Detroit. He met someone, started a new relationship. He wanted to come back to his old life. That's why he left protection? Dad nodded. Against all advice. The marshals told him it was suicide, but Vincent was always stubborn. He thought 15 years was long enough. He thought everyone had forgotten, but they hadn't. Dominic Torino never forgets a betrayal. Never. I stood up and started pacing, just like Dad had been doing. So what now? Do we run again? Get new identities? It's not that simple, Dad said. The protection program has been compromised. If they found Vincent, they might have inside information. We can't trust the marshals anymore. Then what do? We disappear on our own. The next morning, I found my sister in the kitchen making breakfast. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. Mom and Dad told me everything, she said without looking up from her eggs. About the crime family, about Uncle Vincent, about having to run again. How are you handling it? She finally looked at me, and I could see she'd been crying. My entire life is a lie. My friends, my boyfriend, my plans for college, none of it was real. It was real, I said, sitting down next to her. Just because our names were fake doesn't mean our experiences weren't real. Easy for you to say. You'll be transferring colleges anyway. I'm supposed to graduate valedictorian in 2 months. I had a full scholarship to Stanford. Maybe we can find a way. No, she interrupted. Dad already explained. We have maybe a week before we have to disappear completely. No contact with anyone from our old life, ever. The finality of it hit me hard. I thought about my girlfriend, Emily, who I'd been planning to propose to after graduation. My best friend Connor, who I'd known since middle school. My professors who had become mentors. All of it would just end. There's something else, my sister said. Something Mom and Dad didn't tell you last night because they didn't want to overwhelm you. What now? She handed me her phone. On the screen was a Facebook message from someone named Lucia Torino. Hello, Rebecca. My grandfather would very much like to meet you and your family. He has some questions about your Uncle Vincent's recent passing. Please contact me at this number when you're ready to talk. My blood turned to ice. When did you get this? This morning. But look at the timestamp. She sent it 3 days ago. 3 days ago. Before we'd even found the documents in the garage. Before we'd learned the truth about our family. They know where we are, I whispered. They've known for a while, it looks like. I scrolled through my sister's Facebook profile, looking at what information was publicly visible. Her school, her friends, photos of our house and neighborhood, everything the Torino family needed to find us. Have you shown Mom and Dad? Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. I handed her back the phone. We need to show them now. We found our parents in Dad's office, surrounded by maps and papers. They were planning our escape route. How long have you known? Dad asked after reading the message. I just found it this morning, my sister said. But it was sent 3 days ago. Dad closed his eyes and rubbed his temples. They've been watching us. Probably for weeks, maybe months. Which means they know our routines, Mom added. They know where we work, where you go to school, everything. Are we in immediate danger? I asked. The fact that they're reaching out instead of just acting suggests they want something, Dad said. Information, maybe. Or they want to draw us out. What if we just ignored it? Then they escalate. Start threatening your friends, your classmates. Maybe grab one of you to force a meeting. So we have to respond? We have to disappear. Tonight. The rest of the day was a blur of preparation. We couldn't pack much. Just one bag each with essential items. Everything else would have to be left behind. What about our cars? I asked. We'll drive one to the next state, then abandon it and switch to public transportation, Dad explained. Cash only from here on out. No credit cards, no phones, nothing traceable. Where will we go? I have a place in mind. Somewhere I prepared years ago, just in case. That evening, as we were loading our bags into Dad's truck, my sister got another message. I know you're getting ready to run. My grandfather is patient, but not infinitely so. Answer your phone when I call, or we start visiting your friends. As if on cue, her phone started ringing. Unknown number. Don't answer it, Dad said immediately. The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. They're not going to stop, my sister said. Then we turn it off and go. But before we could move, all of our phones started ringing at once. Different numbers, but clearly coordinated. They're making a point, Mom said quietly. They can reach us whenever they want. Dad made a decision. Answer it, but put it on speaker so we can all hear. My sister answered with shaking hands. Hello? Rebecca? This is Lucia Torino. I believe you received my messages. The voice was young, probably around my age. She sounded educated, polite even. What do you want? My sister asked. To talk. Nothing more. My grandfather simply wants to understand what happened to Vincent. Why he chose to come back to Detroit after all these years. We don't know anything about that. I think you do. I think your family knows quite a lot about Vincent's decisions. There was a pause. Then Lucia continued. I'm standing outside your house right now. I can see your truck loaded with bags. Were you planning to go somewhere? My sister dropped the phone. We all rushed to the window and peered through the curtains. A black sedan was parked across the street. A young woman stood next to it, phone to her ear, looking directly at our house. We're trapped, Mom whispered. Dad grabbed the phone. What do you want? He asked. Hello, Anthony. It's been a long time. Dad's face went white. She knew his real name. My grandfather sent me because he remembers you fondly. You were always one of his favorites before you chose to betray him. I had a family to protect. Yes, and you chose them over loyalty, over family. Do you know what happened to Vincent when we found him? Dad didn't answer. He suffered. Not because we enjoyed it, but because betrayal has consequences. Actions have repercussions. What do you want from us? Information. Vincent told us some very interesting things before he died. About money that went missing during the trials. About evidence that was buried. About secrets that only your family would know. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you do. Vincent was very thorough in his confession. He told us about the safety deposit box you set up together. The one with evidence against our family that you kept as insurance. Dad closed his eyes. I could see him calculating, trying to figure out how much Vincent had revealed. Here's what's going to happen, Lucia continued. You're going to invite me inside. We're going to have a civilized conversation, and you're going to give me what belongs to my family. And if I refuse, then this conversation becomes much less civilized, and your children start disappearing. The line went dead. We stood there in silence, staring at each other. Is it true? I asked Dad. About the safety deposit box? He nodded slowly. Vincent and I kept insurance. Documents, recordings, financial records. Everything we'd need if the government's protection failed. Where is it? Portland First National, downtown branch. Through the window, we watched Lucia walk across the street toward our front door. What do we do? My sister whispered. Dad looked at each of us in turn. We survive. Whatever it takes, we survive. The doorbell rang. Dad walked to the front door and opened it. Lucia Torino stepped inside like she owned the place. She was younger than I'd expected. Maybe 25, well-dressed, professional-looking. If I'd seen her on the street, I would have assumed she was a lawyer or banker. Not the granddaughter of a mob boss. Thank you for inviting me in, she said politely, as if this was a normal social visit. You didn't give us much choice. There's always a choice, Anthony. You could have run, could have tried to fight. Instead, you chose to be reasonable. She looked around our living room, taking in the family photos, the normal suburban decor. You've built a nice life here. Very ordinary. That was the point. Yes, I imagine it was. She turned to look at my sister and me. You must be Daniel and Rebecca. You've grown up so much since the last photos we had. The casual way she said it, like she'd been watching us grow up from a distance, was more terrifying than any threat. What exactly do you want? I asked. Straight to business. I like that. She sat down on our couch without being invited. My grandfather wants closure. For 15 years, your father's testimony has hung over our family like a sword. Even though the trial ended in mistrial, the threat of future prosecution remained. And now Vincent is dead, which eliminates one witness. But we know there's still evidence out there. Evidence that could be used against us in the future. Dad remained standing, tense. What makes you think we have anything? Because Vincent told us, in great detail, before he died. She pulled out a tablet and swiped to a video file. My stomach clenched, knowing what we were about to see. I won't play the whole thing, she said, but perhaps just enough to demonstrate our seriousness. The video showed Vincent tied to a chair in what looked like a warehouse. His face was battered, bloody, but it was definitely him. The same face I'd seen in Dad's old photos. Tell me about the insurance policy, a voice off camera demanded. Vincent's voice was weak but clear. Anthony has everything. Safety deposit box, Portland First National, downtown branch. Lucia paused the video. Should I continue? He goes on to describe the contents in remarkable detail. No, Dad said quickly. I believe you. Good. So you understand our position. We need that evidence. All of it. And then you'll leave us alone? Lucia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That depends entirely on what we find in that box. The next morning, the four of us drove to downtown Portland in tense silence. Lucia followed in her sedan with two other cars, backup presumably. At the bank, Dad signed the necessary forms to access the safety deposit box. The contents were extensive: file folders, USB drives, audio recordings, photographs. Everything's here, Dad said, gesturing to the material spread across the small viewing room table. Lucia examined each item carefully, occasionally making notes on her phone. This is quite comprehensive, she said. Financial records, meeting transcripts, even photographs of money transfers. Vincent was thorough. Indeed he was. My grandfather will be pleased to finally have closure on this matter. She began placing everything into a briefcase. So we're done? Mom asked. Our family is free? Lucia paused, briefcase half closed. Well, that's the complicated part. My heart sank. You see, while this evidence resolves the immediate legal threat, it also reveals something we didn't previously know. She pulled out one of the file folders and opened it. According to these documents, your father wasn't just a witness to our family's activities, he was an active participant in skimming money from our operations. Dad's face went pale. That's not $3 million, Anthony. Over a period of 5 years, money that should have gone to our family but somehow ended up in offshore accounts registered to Vincent Kowalski. Vincent was handling the finances. I didn't know, but you benefited from it. This house, your children's education, your comfortable suburban lifestyle, all funded by money stolen from my grandfather. The room felt like it was closing in on us. What do you want? I asked. Restitution, $3 million plus interest. Let's call it $5 million total. We don't have that kind of money, Mom said. No, but you have something else. You have the rest of your lives to earn it. Lucia closed the briefcase and stood up. Here's how this works. You'll continue living your normal lives, but 25% of your family's income from all sources will be paid to us monthly. Think of it as a very long-term payment plan. And if we refuse, then you disappear. Not into witness protection this time, just disappear. For how long? Dad asked. Until the debt is paid in full. At current income levels, I estimate roughly 30 years. 30 years. My entire adult life spent paying for my father's crimes. There's one more thing, Lucia added. Since trust has been an issue in our relationship, we'll need some collateral. What kind of collateral? She smiled at my sister and me. Your children, of course. One of them will need to come work directly for our family to ensure payment compliance. Absolutely not, Dad said immediately. Then we'll take both of them. The standoff lasted for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Finally, I spoke up. I'll do it. Daniel, no, my sister said. Someone has to, and you still have high school to finish. Lucia nodded approvingly. Excellent. Daniel will relocate to our operations in Las Vegas. Don't worry, it's mostly legitimate business these days. Casinos, real estate, entertainment ventures. What kind of work? I asked. Whatever we need. You'll be well compensated, and the money you earn will count toward your family's debt. How do we know you'll honor the agreement? Because my grandfather is a man of his word, unlike your father. The next week passed in a blur of preparations. I had to withdraw from college, pack my belongings, and say goodbye to everyone I'd ever known, without being able to explain why. Emily took the news the hardest. You're just leaving? She asked, tears streaming down her face. What about us? What about our plans? I got a job opportunity I can't pass up, I lied. It's temporary. How temporary? I couldn't answer that. 30 years wasn't temporary by any reasonable definition. The night before I was supposed to leave, my sister came into my room. There has to be another way, she said. This isn't fair. You didn't do anything wrong. None of us did anything wrong, but here we are. I could come with you. We could face this together. No, you're going to finish school, go to college, build a normal life. That's the whole point of this sacrifice. What if I can't? What if I can't just pretend everything is normal while you're paying for Dad's mistakes? I hugged her tight. Then you'll fake it until it becomes real. That's what this family does, apparently. We're really good at pretending to be someone else. The next morning, Lucia arrived to pick me up. Her sedan was nicer than any car my family had ever owned. Ready? She asked. I looked back at our house, the Thompson family home where I'd grown up believing I was someone else entirely. My parents stood in the doorway, looking older than I'd ever seen them. My sister waved from her bedroom window. No, I said, but let's go anyway. The drive to Las Vegas took 12 hours. Lucia was surprisingly good company. Intelligent, well-educated, even funny at times. If I'd met her under different circumstances, I might have liked her. Can I ask you something? I said somewhere around hour 8. Sure. Why don't you just kill us? Wouldn't that be simpler than this elaborate payment plan? She considered the question seriously. My grandfather is old-fashioned. He believes in justice over vengeance. Your father stole from us, so you'll pay it back. Vincent betrayed us, so he died. Each consequence fits the crime. And what crime did I commit? You were born into a criminal family. Sometimes that's crime enough. We arrived in Las Vegas at sunset. The city sprawled out before us, all neon and glass and artificial glamour. Lucia drove us to a high-rise apartment building in an upscale part of town. This is yours, she said, handing me a set of keys. Furnished, utilities included. Rent will be deducted from your salary. The apartment was nicer than anywhere I'd ever lived. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, a view of the Strip. What's the catch? I asked. No catch. We want you comfortable. Happy employees are productive employees. And what will I be doing? Tomorrow you'll meet with our HR department. They'll assess your skills and find an appropriate position. You'll be working for Torino Entertainment Group, our legitimate business holdings. And how much of my salary goes toward the family debt? 50%. The rest is yours to live on. I did the math in my head. At entry-level wages, it would take decades to pay off $5 million. There are ways to accelerate the process, Lucia added as if reading my mind, such as special projects, higher risk assignments with better compensation. But we'll discuss that later once you've proven yourself. She left me alone in the apartment with a company handbook and instructions to report to the Torino Entertainment offices the next morning. That night, I called home from a prepaid phone Lucia had given me. "How are you holding up?" Dad asked. "I'm alive. The apartment is nice. It could be worse. Daniel, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." "Yeah, it is, but we deal with the situation we have, not the one we wish we had. Is there anything we can do from here? Just live your lives. Pay what you can. Maybe someday this will all be over. I love you, son." "I love you too, Dad. All of you." The next morning, I reported to Torino Entertainment Group, a gleaming office building just off the strip. The company was surprisingly legitimate. They owned several casinos, a production company, and various real estate holdings throughout Nevada. My supervisor, a woman named Carmen, who seemed to have no knowledge of my family's situation, assigned me to the accounting department. "You'll be processing financial reports, tracking expenses, basic bookkeeping," she explained. Nothing too complicated to start with. The work was mundane, but tolerable. My co-workers were friendly enough, though I was careful not to get too close to anyone. I couldn't risk involving innocent people in my family's problems. For 6 months, I lived a strange double life. During the day, I was Daniel Thompson, entry-level accountant. But every evening, I'd receive a call from someone in the Torino organization, reminding me of my true purpose. The calls weren't threatening, just regular check-ins to ensure I was meeting my obligations. My paychecks were automatically split, with half going toward the family debt and the other half deposited into my personal account. The money going toward the debt was substantial, more than my official salary should have allowed. I suspected the Torinos were supplementing my payments somehow, possibly to accelerate the repayment schedule. Then one day, Lucia appeared in my office. "How are you settling in?" she asked. "Fine. No complaints. Excellent. I have a proposition for you." She explained that the company had identified some irregularities in one of their subsidiary operations, a casino in Reno that appeared to be skimming from the nightly receipts. "We need someone to investigate, someone without obvious ties to our family, someone who could blend in as a regular customer. You want me to spy on your own employees? I want you to help us identify theft, which, given your family history, seems appropriately ironic. The assignment would last 2 weeks. If I successfully identified the source of the theft, it would count as a year's worth of debt payments. And if I refuse, then you continue your current payment schedule. No penalties, no consequences. This is an opportunity, not an obligation." I thought about my sister, who would be starting college soon, about my parents, who were working multiple jobs to make their portion of the payments, about the 30-year sentence hanging over all of us. "I'll do it." The Reno assignment was my first real glimpse into the darker side of the Torino operation. While their Las Vegas businesses were mostly legitimate, the Reno casino operated in a legal gray area, catering to high-stakes gamblers who preferred to avoid traditional banking systems. It took me less than a week to identify the theft. 3 dealers were working together to skim chips during busy periods, then cash them out through a complex laundering scheme. When I reported my findings to Lucia, she was impressed. "Very thorough work. My grandfather will be pleased. So I've earned a year's credit toward the debt? Actually, given the amount of money you helped us recover, we're crediting you with 18 months. It was progress, but not enough. At this rate, I'd still be paying for decades." "There are other opportunities," Lucia said, "if you're interested." "What kind of opportunities?" "The kind that could cut years off your family's debt. But they require more specialized skills, such as information gathering, relationship building, occasionally more direct action." She was talking about becoming a full-fledged operative for the Torino family, not just an accountant working off a debt, but an actual member of their organization. What would that mean for my family? It would mean faster debt resolution. It would also mean deeper involvement in our business. And if I wanted out someday? People don't usually want out of our business, Daniel. We take very good care of our people. I thought about Vincent, who had tried to leave and ended up dead in a Detroit apartment. I need time to think about it. Of course, but don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't come around often. That night, I called home again. "They want me to do more than just accounting," I told Dad. "What kind of more?" "The kind where I become one of them instead of just working for them." There was a long silence on the other end. "Son, you need to be very careful. Once you cross certain lines, there's no going back. But it could cut years off the debt. Maybe I could get all of us free sooner. Or maybe you'd end up like Vincent." I knew he was right, but the temptation was strong. Every day I spent in Las Vegas was a day stolen from my real life. Every month that passed was a month my sister couldn't live normally, knowing her brother was paying for their father's crimes. "What would you do?" I asked. "I'd probably make the same mistake I made 15 years ago. I'd think I was smart enough to outsmart them, and I'd end up making things worse for everyone I love." "So you think I should refuse?" "I think you should be smarter than your old man." The next morning, I gave Lucia my answer. "I appreciate the offer, but I prefer to stick with my current arrangement." She seemed disappointed, but not surprised. "Very well. But Daniel?" "Yeah? If you change your mind, the offer will remain open. We don't forget loyalty, just like we don't forget betrayal." For the next 2 years, I maintained my double life in Las Vegas. I worked my accounting job, made my debt payments, and slowly watched the balance decrease. Occasionally, Lucia would offer me special assignments, always optional, always lucrative, and I'd accept the ones that seemed relatively safe. My sister graduated high school as valedictorian and accepted a full scholarship to Stanford. My parents sold their house and moved into a smaller apartment, directing every spare dollar toward the family debt. By my 3rd year in Las Vegas, we'd paid off nearly $2 million. The end was still distant, but it was visible. Then everything changed. I was working late one evening when my phone rang. Unknown number. Daniel, this is Agent Rachel Morrison with the FBI. My blood went cold. We need to talk. Tonight. There's a coffee shop called Moonbeams on Charleston Boulevard. Be there in 30 minutes. Come alone. How do I know you're really FBI? Because if I wasn't, you'd already be dead instead of getting a phone call. I found Agent Morrison exactly where she said she'd be. A woman in her 40s with short brown hair and intense eyes. She was sitting alone in the back corner of the coffee shop. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down across from her. "What do you want?" "To offer you a way out." She slid a file folder across the table. Inside were photographs of me entering the Torino Entertainment Building, detailed financial records of my debt payments, and surveillance photos of my family in Portland. "We've been watching your situation for some time," she said. "We know about your father's deal with the government, about Vincent's death, about your current employment arrangement. Are you here to arrest me?" "No. We're here to offer you a deal." "What kind of deal?" "The kind that gets your family out of this situation permanently." She explained that the FBI had been building a case against the Torino family for years, but they needed an inside source, someone with access to their financial records and business operations. "You're perfectly positioned to help us. You have legitimate access to their books, and they trust you enough to give you special assignments. And in exchange, full immunity for you and your family. Protection from retaliation. New identities if necessary." "What makes you think they trust me?" Agent Morrison smiled. "Because yesterday, Lucia Torino recommended you for promotion to their inner circle. Congratulations. You're about to become a made member of their organization." My heart stopped. "What?" "She submitted your name to Dominic Torino himself. Apparently your work over the past 3 years has impressed them." I never agreed to that. "No, but according to our intelligence, your agreement isn't required. Once you're formally inducted, refusing orders becomes problematic." "You mean fatal?" "I mean, you'd better have a very good exit strategy." I stared at the photographs spread across the table. My family looked so normal, so innocent. They had no idea how close we all were to crossing a line we could never uncross. "What exactly would you need from me? Financial records, shipping manifest, communication logs? Evidence of money laundering, racketeering, maybe tax evasion. Enough to build a federal case. How long would it take? 6 months, maybe less if we get lucky. And then my family would be free? Completely free. The debt would be legally invalid, obtained through extortion. We'd seize enough Torino assets to compensate your family for what they've already paid." I thought about my sister, starting her sophomore year at Stanford, about my parents, working themselves to exhaustion, about the next 27 years of payments stretching ahead of us. What are the risks? If they discover you're working with us, you and your family will disappear, permanently. And if I refuse to help you, then in a few days, you'll be formally inducted into the Torino family. At that point, leaving becomes exponentially more difficult. She was right. I was running out of options. I need to think about it. You have 24 hours. After that, the offer expires. That night, I called my dad and explained the situation. "It's too dangerous," he said immediately. "These people killed Vincent for far less. But it's our only chance to get out clean, to actually be free. Son, I've made enough deals with law enforcement to last 3 lifetimes. They don't always keep their promises. But what choice do we have?" There was a long pause. "You could run. Tonight. Just disappear. We'll figure out how to handle the debt on our own. And spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders, never seeing each other again. At least we'd all be alive." I knew he was right, but I also knew I couldn't live with that choice. My family deserved better than a lifetime of hiding. "I'm going to do it," I said. "I'm going to help the FBI. Daniel, it's the only way. Unless you have a better idea." He didn't. The next evening, I met Agent Morrison again and agreed to cooperate. She gave me a small device disguised as a flash drive that would copy files from any computer I plugged it into. "Be careful," she warned. "Don't deviate from your normal routines. Don't access anything you wouldn't normally have reason to access, and never ever let them suspect you're gathering intelligence. What if they ask me to do something illegal? You do it. Whatever it takes to maintain your cover. Even if it means hurting innocent people? Daniel, if this operation fails, your family dies. Keep that in perspective." The next week, I received official notification of my promotion. I was now a senior associate with access to higher-level financial records and operational details. Lucia personally delivered the news. "My grandfather is very pleased with your progress," she said. "You've proven yourself trustworthy and capable. I appreciate the confidence. This new position comes with additional responsibilities and additional compensation, of course." She explained that I'd now be handling financial oversight for several of their business operations, including some of their less conventional ventures. Less conventional how? Import-export businesses, entertainment services, private lending operations, money laundering, prostitution, and loan sharking. She was being polite about it, but the meaning was clear. "I understand. Excellent. You'll start Monday. Your salary will be tripled, and we're crediting your family's debt with an additional $1 million. It was a generous offer, suspiciously generous. My debt was being forgiven faster than the math should allow. "Why?" I asked. Because my grandfather believes in rewarding loyalty, and because we have bigger plans for you. That weekend, I used the FBI's device to copy every financial file I could access. The data was staggering. Detailed records of money laundering operations, bribes to public officials, and illegal gambling enterprises. But I also found something else. A file labeled Thompson Family Account. Inside were records showing that my family's debt had been artificially inflated. The original amount stolen was closer to $500,000, not $3 million. The Torinos had been using our situation as leverage to recruit me, making the debt seem larger and more insurmountable than it actually was. They'd manipulated us from the beginning. I copied everything and sent it to Agent Morrison through our secure communication channel. Her response came back within hours. This is exactly what we needed. Maintain your position for 2 more weeks while we prepare arrest warrants. 2 weeks felt like an eternity. Every interaction with Lucia or other Torino associates felt like walking through a minefield. I had to act natural, while knowing that discovery meant death. On a Tuesday morning in my 2nd week of espionage, Lucia appeared in my office with an unexpected request. "We need you to travel to Portland," she said. "There's a situation that requires your particular expertise." My blood went cold. "What kind of situation?" "Some former associates of your father have been asking questions. People who knew Vincent. We need someone to have conversations with them. Someone who understands the family dynamics." "What kind of conversations?" "The kind that ensure their continued discretion." She was asking me to threaten people who had known my father, possibly to hurt them. "I don't think I'm the right person for that job. My grandfather specifically requested you. He feels it would be poetic justice. And if I refuse, then someone else handles it. Someone who might be less gentle in their approach." I was trapped. If I refused, they'd send someone who might actually harm innocent people. If I agreed, I'd be crossing a line that I couldn't uncross. "When do I leave?" "Tomorrow morning. Don't worry, it should be a quick trip. A few conversations, then back to Vegas." That night, I called Agent Morrison's emergency number. "They're sending me to Portland," I told her. "They want me to threaten people who knew my father." "That's perfect," she said. "We were planning to move next week anyway. This gives us grounds for additional charges. But what about the people they want me to threaten? We'll have surveillance teams in place. The moment you make contact with any of their targets, we'll move in. So I'll actually have to go through with it? Just long enough to establish intent. Don't worry, no one will be harmed." I flew to Portland the next morning with a briefcase full of instructions and a heart full of dread. The list of people I was supposed to visit included former neighbors, my father's old co-workers, and even my high school guidance counselor. The plan was simple. Visit each person, remind them that discussing the Kowalski family with anyone would be unhealthy for their continued well-being, then report back to Lucia. But as I sat in my rental car outside my old high school, I couldn't bring myself to go inside. Mrs. Patterson had helped me apply to colleges, written recommendation letters, celebrated my achievements. The thought of threatening her was unbearable. I called Agent Morrison. "I can't do this," I said. "These people are innocent. Daniel, you need to follow the plan. We have teams in position. The moment you approach any of these targets, we'll arrest you and shut down the entire operation." "Arrest me?" "As part of your cover. The Torinos will think you were caught, not that you cooperated. It protects your family from retaliation. And then? Then you disappear into witness protection while we build our case. What about my family? They'll be safe. We'll monitor the situation and bring them into protection if necessary." I sat in that parking lot for another hour, watching students walk in and out of my old school. Normal kids living normal lives, oblivious to the darkness that had consumed mine. Finally, I made my decision. I drove to Mrs. Patterson's house and knocked on her door. She answered with a confused smile. "Daniel, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you about my father." As the words left my mouth, I saw FBI agents moving into position around the house. Agent Morrison had kept her word. "Mrs. Patterson," I said loudly enough for the surveillance equipment to pick up. "You need to stop asking questions about the Kowalski family, for your own safety." Before she could respond, the agents moved in. "FBI! Daniel Thompson, you're under arrest." They handcuffed me and led me to their vehicle, while Mrs. Patterson watched in shock from her doorway. To any observers, it would look like a failed intimidation attempt that resulted in my capture. "Sorry about this," Agent Morrison whispered as she put me in the back of her car, "but we need to sell the performance." I spent the next 6 hours in FBI custody while they coordinated the arrests of dozens of Torino associates across multiple states. By evening, Dominic Torino himself was in federal custody, along with Lucia and most of their key operatives. "It's over," Agent Morrison told me. "Your family is free." I called home from the FBI office. "Dad, it's me. It's over. We're free." "What happened? Are you okay?" "I helped the FBI take down the Torinos. The debt is gone. Everything is over." "And you're safe?" "I'm safe. We're all safe." That was 6 months ago. My family has since moved back to our real identities. Daniel Kowalski, not Daniel Thompson. It's strange, learning to be yourself after years of pretending to be someone else. I'm finishing college in Portland, studying criminal justice. Ironic, maybe, but after everything I've seen, I want to help other families escape situations like ours. My sister is thriving at Stanford. My parents have reopened their old business. We're rebuilding our lives as the people we were always supposed to be. Sometimes I think about Lucia, now serving 15 years in federal prison. I wonder if she understands that loyalty and fear aren't the same thing, that real family doesn't require blackmail to stay together. But mostly, I just try to live normally, To be a regular college student who worries about exams and dating instead of debt payments and death threats. It's harder than you might think, learning to trust that your life is actually your own. But every morning when I wake up in my own bed, in my own apartment, living under my own name, I'm reminded that freedom is worth fighting for, even if the fight nearly destroys you.